I knew that if you got to tell this story first, it would look very different from mine. Actually, this is my 5th time with the yarconf, so I feel like it's like my little anniversary with the Dmitry Nikitin School, but we're not here to speak about that, unfortunately. Are you okay, guys? Are you still more or less alive? Okay, great, brilliant. Me too. In 2013, I was in London in April doing my CELTA. And for this CELTA course, I had to teach an authentic materials lesson. Does anybody remember their authentic materials-based CELTA lesson? Hands up, who remembers that? It's quite a painful experience. Super, thank you. So I'm going to share my story. For some reason, during my first time in London, I got really fascinated by the London Tube. I have no idea why, but it was like a thing for me. And when I had to choose a text for my pre-intermediate group, 15 people I barely knew, I decided to share text about London Tube because this is something I really cared about and I had no idea what they cared about. So I chose my text. And in that CELTA school, we had to pay for every page we would print for our students. So I chose my text, I copied that text from the London Tube website, I screenshotted all the pictures, so I made it look like the way it looked on the website, but I copied the text separately. And when I showed it to my tutor, he said, Anita, you should not be doing this, because when you teach an authentic materials-based lesson, you should not even touch the authentic material. You should print it as is. If it's a website page, you print it as is. And I told him, 15 people, 2 pages or 1 page does make a big difference when you pay it in pounds. And he said, right, it does make sense. So okay for this particular time, but this is not how you teach authentic materials. Now I have my own program for teachers called Teachers Teach Teachers, and every month there I run sessions for English teachers where we plan lessons together. They plan lessons together and I'm there to help. And when they plan their lessons, they usually start very enthusiastically with some ideas. Ooh, I have some pictures I want to add for a lead-in. And I'm listening, and then they have something like, ooh, I'd like to replace this article in the course book with the article, an authentic article. I'm gonna spend time, I'm gonna find something related to this topic. Yay. And then maybe they suggest, maybe we should watch a video. Okay, the topic is politics, political joke. Okay, I'm gonna find a video about that. And I'm thinking, listening to them, and try not to, contradict much, because this is a professional development program, and I believe that everybody should be teaching according to their teaching principles and beliefs. So not only mine, yes, everybody has a choice. And also sometimes they share something like, when they discuss their previous lesson, they would say, I'm not very satisfied with my previous lesson. Why not? I failed. Why? How come? And they would say, we spent all 90 minutes talking, and we didn't have enough time to do the listening. And I was like, weren't you listening while somebody was speaking? Okay, but this is some thoughts that teachers share with me. And as I've already mentioned, I try not to interfere much, but this is a different place. This is a conference, so I think this is a place where we ask questions, where we discuss things that might sound a bit controversial, or not, I don't know, we'll see what you say. So what I'm going to say today might contradict a little bit what you've heard today, but this is what the conferences are for, aren't they? So, I'm Anita Modestova, and I'm here today to try and maybe question the way we perceive and the way we deal with authentic materials in class. I'm an English teacher myself. I work with adults. I think I have experience teaching all ages and levels, like everybody in this room, right? This is what we all start with. And now I specialize in adults, and I also have my professional development program for teachers called Teachers Teach Teachers, where teachers teach each other. And partly what I'm going to be speaking today is based on what I heard from other teachers. I also experiment with teaching Russian lexically. Who follows my Experimenta SRKI hashtag? Ooh, not too many people. You should start doing that right now. No, in 20 minutes. And this is our experiment with Andrew Walkley, where the co-author of Outcomes books and Teaching Lexically, where I teach him Russian lexically, and we see if it's working or not. We've been doing it for about 2 years, and I think this is the experience that made me question the way I do things when I teach English, because teaching Russian is very different from teaching English, and it like kind of broke the pattern of me doing things. So now every time I have to do something, I'm thinking, why? And this is very annoying, so I do recommend it. If you have never taught a different language, try. I was getting ready for this talk because I had a year and 6 months to prepare it, and obviously I was doing it last week. So this is a survey I did last week. I don't know, anybody answered? Familiar? Sounds familiar? This form looks familiar? Ooh, more people than are following my RKI hashtag. Okay, thank you guys for answering the questions. So I did 2 Google Forms. One was in English. It was mostly aimed at teachers of English as a second language, and one made in Russian, exactly same questions, but it was mostly aimed at Russian, teachers of Russian as a second language. As I've already mentioned, I'm experimenting with teaching Russian, and I was just curious about if there would be any difference. So in this survey, I asked if teachers use authentic materials in class or not. What does the term stand for? What we mean by authentic materials? Because now I'm saying authentic materials, and you say, yes, I understand. And we all might be meaning different things at all. And then I asked a couple of questions about the way people use authentic materials in class, because this is what I was interested in. So their answer to the first question was, yes, we do use authentic materials in class, maybe just a little percentage, 2 or 3 people out of 54 in this form and 56 in this form said no, for different reasons. And then I asked, what does it mean? Authentic materials? And you can look at the definitions, which ones are closer to you. I just took a couple of screenshots out of more than 100 answers. And basically we have here material that is not designed to be used in class, created for native speakers, and more or less the same in the Russian form. Again, for native speakers, by native speakers, not designed for language purposes. So I kind of like summarized it all up in one definition. No, wrong way. Materials created by native speakers, for native speakers, and not designed for learning a language. Does it correlate with something that you've heard about authentic materials usage? Yeah? Okay, I can see you nodding. Yeah, so we're kind of more or less on the same page. There were kind of a couple of different answers, but not too many. I think there is a huge problem with this definition, and it actually brings us to teachers wasting time Googling and trying to find the perfect authentic material for their class. And then, I know it because I run a program for teachers. Teachers, I can't say complain, but they're really sad that they don't have time for professional development or work on their own English, and basically teachers are overworked. And I think the origins is partly in this. And after having wasted all that time, we end up bringing inappropriate, actually, texts, inappropriate materials for our level to our class. And I have a solution for this problem. It's quite easy. I believe that we should use more authentic for the class materials, and we should be making them ourselves. So my talk is about this. Bear with me. I'm going to explain everything that I mean. So, created by native speakers. This leads us to the first problem: what to choose. Do you know the series? Does anybody? So who likes the series? Devious Maids. I knew it wouldn't be too popular. So this is kind of like Desperate Housewives, but all these actresses, they are all Latin American. The main leader is Puerto Rican, and they speak. It's an English series, 100%, and they speak with this amazing Latin American accent. I just love it. It's so much fun watching it. But unfortunately, I cannot recommend my students to watch it. No matter the language here, nothing, because this is not made by native speakers. It's very obvious. Okay, so for example, what to choose. If I'm thinking of what to choose for my class about, I don't know, animals, nature, I might be thinking, oh, Dmitry Nikitin just posted something about a fox, and actually it's an interesting story because he believed this fox to be a he-fox, and it turned out to be a she-fox. And here she's introducing her baby to Dmitry Nikitin, so very important moment. And here, this is Animal Planet channel, also a lovely story about a cat, big cat being friend, two big cats being friends with a bear. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, Dmitry. Where is he? Okay, he obviously had left. And this is probably why as well. I'm not going to be choosing this lovely story because I know for sure that Dmitry is not a native speaker of English language. He should have written it in Russian, and then I would just show it to Andrew and use it in a different class. But I can definitely choose the Animal Planet post. Then imagine that my teachers are students, and my students are teachers, and I'm thinking, ooh, I want to share something on the lexical approach with them. And I'm thinking, Polina Kordik did this amazing interview with Andrew Walkley, and I'd love my students to watch it in class. I would be in real, trouble giving instructions. I would say something like, we're going to watch a video. There is Polina and Andrew talking. Please disregard whatever Polina says. We're not interested in what she'll be saying. Sorry, Polina. And please listen only to what Andrew says, because he's a native speaker and she's not. And this is an authentic materials-based lesson. So no offense, Polina, but really this is the definition. But the worst thing is, guys, we're in trouble. This conference is not authentic. I'm not a native speaker. You're not native speakers. So you paid for 2 full... sorry, only for James this might, but I'm not a native speaker. I ruined everything for you, James. I'm sorry. So you paid for 2 days, right? You can't ask for a refund anymore. So sorry. We're in trouble. The second problem is, my question here, why would anybody bother learning a language even if their teacher is not able to produce a decent, authentic bit of material in the language they're teaching? I think this is a serious trouble. Then, of course, in search of those materials, people, what do we do when we need authentic materials? Google it. So, and here, look at it. This is what surprised me. This is when I started thinking, what do teachers of Russian as a foreign language do? They Google. We Google. So here, actually, no matter the nativeness, the first thing when you need authentic materials, we Google. Then, as I've already mentioned, it's out of context. The definition was by native speakers and for native speakers. So here's the trouble. My students are not native speakers of English. Otherwise, they wouldn't be learning English with me, right? So why would I bring something to my students that is not for them, and it will never be for them? Yeah, because it's kind of for internal use documents. I'm not convinced, I'm not sure. We're all making fun of this amazing phrase, London is the capital of Great Britain, that we all learned at school. And of course it's a funny story about all those topics and things, but I think that sometimes now we do a very similar thing, because when we speak about context, we'd like to introduce our students to English-speaking culture, which is usually the UK or America. I don't know about your students, but my students will be speaking to IT, Polish people, Chinese developers, and people like that. And their context is very, very different. So here's me having a nice boat trip, kayaking on the Thames, and this amazing gentleman, a 70-year-old lawyer from South London. About 2 hours into our nice trip, he says, sorry, Anita, I'll have to ask it. What do you think of the Russian politics of your president? And I'm like, okay. So basically, I think everybody in this room has been asked something like this. But do we speak about Russian politics in class? No. But actually, this is what our students will be speaking about, not about American politics. They will be listening about it if they want to ask about it, but they will be speaking about Russian context. And the problem with authentic materials designed for native speakers is that these texts, these audios, will never help our students speak about their experience, their Russian experience. And then the last problem, I think we'll have to face the elephant in the room, that the lesson is a lesson. And we are there to teach, and our students are there to learn. We're not in a cafe reading a menu, we're not on London Tube. So my question here is, why would suddenly a text, by text I mean audio, video, written text, why would suddenly a text written by a random person be better for language learning purposes than a text written by a professional, a course book writer or a teacher? I don't have an answer to that question. Also, speaking of, context, remember that little example I made about Polina Kordik's video? You see, Polina is not here, I think, right? So when is here, Polina? Melina? Uh-oh. Now, it's good that she's here, or maybe not. Anyway, oh, no. So, I'm not sure if she's here. So, anyway, when I was making this example, you all understand the context, why I was doing it, to prove my point. But I think Melina is still not here. So, if somebody, filmed this bit, and we'll send it to Melina, like, Anita is trashing you at the conference, and she would definitely delete me, block me on social media, and would be, I don't know, asking Dmitry Nikita not to deal with me ever. And this means that all texts are made, the kind of language is created in the context, it doesn't live without a context. The moment you take something out of the context and put into class, like into a lab, it's not authentic anymore. Then, materials not designed for language learning. It's very hard to fit it into a classroom. There is a problem of level. Does anybody speak Hebrew here? A bit, okay, super. So more or less nobody, just one person, A1 or something. So can you look at this picture, please? It is Hebrew, so I remind you that we'll read from right to the left. It's quite tricky, but it's, I don't know, easily managed. So can you please tell me what is this article about? What is it saying to us? Yeah, so what is this? Wearing a mask. What is this? Vaccinations. And what is this? Social distancing. All this brings us to protection against COVID. Amazing, guys. You're making your first steps in Hebrew. You understand your text. This is so cool. And of course, it's fun when I'm doing it like this at a conference. But I don't think it's fun when we do something like this in class. Adults don't like being tricked. And I know that I used to do this because I was taught to do something very similar to what I just did. And I know that many teachers do this. But I think that adults, and anyway, anybody, has a right to know everything what their teacher brings them. So if you bring them a huge text and you just want them to understand a little bit from there, they will not be satisfied, they will be annoyed, and I think they all have all the right to do so, because if they have a page of text, they are expecting to understand the page of text. Or if they listen to the whole audio, they want to understand everything there, because it is in class. Then, curious thing, I teach teachers how to work with emergent vocabulary, and the first question everybody asks is, but Anita, it's not, how do you recycle it? If you write all that language down in class, and then what? It's hard to recycle. I agree, it is hard to recycle. Surprisingly, nobody ever asks about recycling the materials from so-called authentic texts. We bring a huge article, it kind of doesn't fit into the program, doesn't fit into the course book, and for some reason, with maybe native speaker language, it's kind of magically imprinted in our head, I don't know, but for some reason doesn't raise the question of recycling. So, I'd like to sum up. With this idea of authentic materials, teachers waste time on Googling instead of professional development, instead of really creating their own materials and not just supplementing a book with trying to find a post, a video or something. We end up bringing irrelevant materials because they're out of context and they're out of level most of the time, and the language fits a little bit maybe because it's an appropriate level and we all bring it into our class. But why we think we need authentic materials? I asked this question, and the answer was, I think the answers are valid, they're great, this is a great reason. We want real, natural language in class. And I quite agree that it's an important thing, but I'm not sure why the language you are using in class is not real. I think the concept is a bit outdated. Back in times where neither students nor teachers had access to the internet, so I think our teachers would try and record any audio bit that they could hear, and of course that was important, there was a contact with real life, but it's not like that anymore. Our students can watch Netflix without us, they can, watch adult films for what I care, if it's in English, anything they want to, and they have this opportunity. So a couple of years ago, I think, I read about the concept authentic for the classroom, and I'd like to share this idea with you. This is a bit of an article by Henry Widdowson, And this is an article in TESOL Quarterly, but this is based on his talk at a TESOL conference, I think in Canada, back in 1998. So it was a long time ago. And here, I just would like to point out that he believes that language cannot be authentic because the classroom cannot provide the contextual conditions for it to be authentic for the learners. Kind of what I made an example of with Polina watching the bit of my talk a bit later. So the language that is authentic for the native speaker users cannot possibly be authentic for learners because our learners are not those native speakers who the texts were written for. And he believes that the solution to this problem is not to force our learners to learn it, to read authentic user text on learners because they are more likely to be alienated or even annoyed by it because they would not understand the context or the language. And his solution is that the language of the classroom has to be made effective. And he suggests his two ways, and I'm going to suggest what I think we could be doing. So my solution is very, very simple. Instead of Googling, we should come to class and listen and observe and notice and write down what our students are trying to say, are trying to ask, are trying to produce. And then we could create something based on what our students want to say, because this is what they want to share, and it's impossible to find a text that will help them. Maybe it is possible, but I think it's much easier to create it. Write. We had a lesson on a session on writing today. If you are following Cambridge statistics from CPE exams or CE exams, the lowest grades teachers are getting are on writing. It's maybe because we believe that our job does not require us to write, but actually I think it does. And then we can play, but not the computer games, the sign I have here. We can play with the language. We can ask students to expand those texts, we can gap those texts. We can do whatever we want with those texts, because this is what we do in class, we study. I'd like to give you a couple of examples so you'd know what to do, because I'm rejecting all the authentic materials resources, so what am I suggesting instead? These are two examples. The first one is from my elementary lesson with my students. We're working with Outcomes Elementary, but our lesson started with a problem, and my student, so we had a little bit of a dialogue with my student. He's elementary. Obviously, this is what I have here is not what my student produced, but this is what he could have produced if he knew how. So I wrote this dialogue for him, and then when he stopped, when he complained enough, I wrote this down, did you fix your fridge? And he said, no, it's too old to be fixed. And I like his idea here, actually. I prefer to change the flat, not the fridge. Quite clever, isn't it? So this is a bit of an authentic for our interaction text that I wrote in class. And this is here with my examples from our lessons with Andrew, is that your text does not necessarily have to be very long, you know? We don't like writing long text. It can be just a sentence. It's already an authentic sentence. And then, for example, with this sentence starter, я пишу текст для онлайн-курса, я снимаю видео для онлайн-курса, because this is what he was doing when we talked about this. We can say, okay, now, as Irina already suggested today, you have the first sentence. Could you maybe add one before that, one after that? Yeah, this could be your homework. And then the student will create a bigger authentic text. Yeah, and you are there to help them make it sound more natural. So I think the students are more or less responsible for the authenticity of this context, and you're responsible for it to be sounding natural. Then my favorite, audios. And here is my example, if you heard my talk Made to be Heard about how to create your classroom audios yourself. This is a unit where there is a series of blog posts on how adult people miss their flights. And I had a lesson with my student. He's a very good student. He read everything. He did all the exercises. But then at the end he said, Anita, it's all very, very nice, but an adult person will never miss a flight. This is not true. Anybody who missed their flights or trains or something? Okay, next time I'll take a picture for my student, and this will be my authentic material picture. Ooh, Paulina, we talked about you. You're not gonna like it. I'm sorry. You should not be late for talks like this. Sorry. So what I did for my next class, I could have Googled some videos. I'm sure there are plenty of videos of people sharing how they missed the flights on the internet. But this would not be relevant to my student because he doesn't believe it. He thinks it's all made up. But when I brought him five listenings, 5 little recordings from my friends who said, "Hello, Vadim. Actually, Alexei Konobiev was one of the people who recorded the video. Yeah, this is him. I'm sorry, I gave up. So today I'm getting in trouble today with so many people." And I brought it to my student, and he was like, "No, you know these people?" He said, "Yeah, all of them." And he would listen to every audio a couple of times, because I think his whole life was ruined. But anyway, this was authentic for him and very natural. And this is, for example, again, this is the same student. Yeah, so you could exchange audio messages on WhatsApp. I think exchanging messages on audio messages is a very bad thing. But not when you're teaching. When you're teaching, it's a great thing. It's audio. It's listening. You can record videos. I think videos are the trickiest thing. But this is a screenshot from a Telegram chat. I think it's the only time in my life we had a video chat with my student. And you see, I'm asking her, how's your English? And this is, unfortunately, her facial expression here right now. And we had a little video chat on Telegram. Why not? And then we were having a lesson with Andrew again. And we're speaking about rooms in the house. So right after the lesson, just like I turned Zoom off, I turned my camera on, and I'm telling him a story about my room. So I have a computer here, and this and this and that, and I put it on a Canva page with YouTube videos very, very quickly. And I send it to him, and then in about a week or so, he sends me back a video of his study, because he could use my text, my experience to kind of build on it and provide his material. And then I would transcribe his video and make it a little bit better, and we would study the authentic, let's say, text there together. Oh, and the last one was actually, I think I shared a video with my students. We used to have lessons in a cafe, but then we had to move online, and then I went to this cafe, and they remodeled the whole thing. It was awful. So I recorded the video of me complaining about this and that and shared it with my students. So it's very easy to make. It's much faster than Googling, and I think it fits the classroom so much better. So then the question is, if we are not considering for native speakers, by native speakers, and authentic material, so who is the source of real, natural language in class? We are teachers. So this is a picture of, I think, Dmitry Nikitin's school teachers 2 years ago at this conference. I think we should accept that all what the teachers produce in class is authentic. If the teachers are lucky, the student's book is actually a very good source of natural language. The modern course books, they are amazing. Look at the dialects, look at the text, look at the articles. They are natural. And who else? Students, yes, thank you. They're very authentic, but they need our help to sound a bit more natural. So I don't know if you agree with me, disagree, have something to think about, but I'd like to stop now and leave you with one thought, that what you create with your students is the most authentic thing they're going to read, hear, or watch in class. Thank you, everybody, for having me.